Now we are going to see a very interesting game because the white player is Anand, the world champion. And why it's interesting? Because black player is a computer, but obviously in 2024 nobody would even think to put Anand against a computer. Well, this game was played in 2000. In 2000, computers were still not the total domination that they are today. Yet, I think by 2005, they proved themselves definitely superior to every human being in the world. So it seems this game was a match from what I can see, the second game, and honestly from what I see, it's possible that by move 24 the computer already won the game. But obviously it was played up to move 44 before Anand gave up, but from what I see in the comments, there is the sign of a decisive advantage that maybe for us human is not so decisive because we don't know how to convert, and yet for computers it's clear how they convert it. Another thing to know is the previous game I started the game like this and I didn't realize it. And then it came out a very funny joke, about the fact that today, in fact, the queen might identify as a king. So, well, okay, you never know. So the world change, and maybe we should change our rules with it, right? Okay, apart this funny intermezzo, let's go on and let's learn about the Leningrad Dutch. The computer played f5, Anand continued with g3, knight f6, bishop g2, and g6. c3, very interesting, because Anand says, well, you want to develop your bishop here, great, and it will bite against granite, like Nintsovich would say, right? Because it will bite against a pawn chain that is indestructible, let's say. Unfortunately for Anand, the opponent is a computer, and computers are not afraid of that. Bishop g7, queen b3, knight c6, knight f3, d6, castle, e5. And this is the interesting part in a sense, because the king is still in the center and black already pushed the pawn to attack the pawn chain. For a human, I don't know if we would do it. Obviously the computer once more thinks it's okay. Obviously d takes e5, d takes e5, after you have something like rook d1, and you have to play something like this, right? But the problem is, how are you going to castle? Because, yeah, he wants to play this, but obviously white maybe will try to play this, I don't know. It's clearly a mess. The situation doesn't seem very good. Again, once more, try to appreciate the power of this diagonal, the weakness due to the fact that we move this f-pawn, because this thing will dictate your game. Okay, let's return back. So after e5, white plays d5. I don't know if it's the good move, because as you can see, maybe it was better to open the position. After d5 you are not giving black any problems. Why? Knight e7, perfect. c4, now the pawn structure completely changed, because it seems he wants to develop this knight here. Castle. And yes, this diagonal is weak, but as you can see, now we can castle, right? Now the problem is e6, because knight g5, e6 is generally the problem at this point. Rook d1, knight e4, knight c3. This is also a typical exchange in the Dutch. Knight takes c3 and queen takes c3. And generally this move a5 is a move that we have seen after white plays a4 in the Dutch, especially in the classical Dutch. Instead the computer plays it right away, and that's kind of interesting. We have learned as human a lot from computers on this side. Pawn advances, queen c2, a4, rook b1, f4. As you can see, this game is kind of very interesting. Why? Because from one side the computer has kind of fixed the entire queen side, so white doesn't have real counterplay on this side. Once fixed, the computer started to attack on the king side with this f4. So that's why I'm very interested in this game. And imagine this is a computer from the 2000, so more 24 years ago. It's a lot of to think about it, right? Still so strong. Who knows what was the software, because the software is called the Computer Fritz Primergy K800. I don't have any idea what it is. I don't know if this Fritz is the one from ChessBase, which is possible because it was played in Frankfurt. And the other thing is, obviously, I don't know how powerful was a computer in 2000, because I think maybe there were the first Pentiums, right? And boom. So the game continues with knight g5, knight f5, because the diagonal is kind of blocked and is attacking this, right? Now think that if he played knight e6, takes, and then c6 immediately, because so that bishop is kind of useless, and this probably will fall. So what does he do? He plays knight e4, and black takes control of the outpost by the pawn e5 on the square d4. Queen d3, bishop g4, f3. Now keep in mind that if he played rook e1, there was a kind of tactics, and I urge you to pause the video and see. Okay, so instead of f3 that was played in the game, let's see what would black do if you play rook e1, because as you can see he's attacking, right? Well, if you pause the video, you would see that black would still play knight takes e2, and this is a thing you must always think in chess. What happens if I defend something but my opponent is crazy and he takes? What do I do? Well, a possibility after this was this, and it could be kind of problematic, right? Because then you have to give up something, and I don't know, it probably looks bad for white, in the sense that once you control this square, if you're able to play queen d7, h3, and he goes on g2, it's checkmate, okay? So that's what you must be very, very careful about. So instead of rook e1, white played pawn f3, trying to solve that problem. And this is another interesting thing that we humans don't like to do. The computer return back. Bishop d7, b3, a takes b3, a takes b3, and rook a2. Boom. So the computer is against Anand, the world champion. By move 20 is able to control the second rank, which is an advantage. Because it's really a thorn on your side, this kind of rook. Bishop b2, bishop f5, bishop takes d4, e takes d4. This pawn is defended by this, so it cannot be easily removed. What does white do at this point? White, probably understanding that he's playing a computer, and this we know why we played d4, right? Because probably also in 2000 Anand already understood that you cannot beat a computer in the open games. So he tried to keep the position close, but it's kind of difficult. So what does he play? g4, because he's trying to keep the position close, but it doesn't work. Bishop takes e4, and of course here is why I told you by this point probably the computer knew that he was winning, because if you take on e4 with a queen, he says rook e8, decisive advantage. Can you imagine? Rook e8 decisive. Why? Because after rook e8 he's gonna take here, it's over, the game is over. So obviously you cannot take with your queen, you have to take with a pawn. But if you take with a pawn, now you start to have a little trouble here, right? And the position is not really close. So queen g5, starting to put pressure on this. And again, if he played this move, can you believe it? I don't know if you can believe it. Here it says, because this is really crazy. I think we need to take a deep breath and think. Now try to analyze what happens on h3. A little, just to realize a little how is bad for white h3, because this is crazy. It's totally crazy. Here there is an analysis that brings immediately to checkmate in like 6 moves. 6 moves. Can you believe it? Can you believe it? 6 moves. So I hope you pause the video and try to find out what happens after h3. I honestly want to see it because I think it's crazy. So black would continue with f3. At this point the engine says black has won the game. Black has won the game. Why? Because as you can see, this rook becomes decisive. How do you take there? He says you take with the e pawn. You don't take with the bishop. Okay? He doesn't explain why, but let's see what happens. Okay? He takes f3, queen f4. The idea probably is to go here. Rook a1 to take rid of this rook, that is a problem. Rook takes g2. King takes g2. Boom! And with the computers it's always like this. They find a way to enter, no matter what. Now, he plays king f2, he's trying to escape like crazy. Queen g3. King e2. Queen G2, King E1, and I hope you are able to see the final move. If you don't, this is why they call me Mr. Checkmate, because Bishop G3 and the game is over. Okay, kind of amazing. Now the thing is that I think we were in this position and he played King F2, but let's say that he does this because he is trying to keep the position together. Again, Queen G3. Now you cannot go here. That's why he wanted to escape like that, no? You have to go here, okay? But then there is this move, okay? Tack, tack. And believe me, he starts to become crazy at this point because one of these two will definitely fall. This will go here, this tack and give you checkmate, or take this, because go here, you say, I do this, and yes, but where do you go? Where do you go? Right? So I said, I can go here, okay, but I can do this, right? Yeah, you can do that. And this is checkmate again. Alright? So, again, this is the computer in 2000 already killed a world champion, and we are speaking by move 25, the game was practically over. Can you imagine that? Okay, let's go and see how the game continue in real life instead of this variation that we saw if we tried to protect G4 with H3. Okay, I hope I put the position back as it was by memory, so in any case I will surely hear in the comments if I made a mistake. It works, right? So it was played Queen G5, and we ask ourselves what happened if White tries to defend with H3. Instead, in the game, Anand tried to get rid of this rook with rook A1. Notice that this square is kind of problematic, because if you move this, boom, a kind of discovery check or attack can be made. So no way to defend that, so he played rook takes A1, rook takes A1, and queen takes G4. And obviously by this point I think we agree that black is surely winning. But rook A7, queen H4, trying to go here, and rook A1. Now you have a question. You say, but I'm sorry, you put the rook here, dear Anand, it's because you want to play rook takes b7, right? So let's pause the video and try to think, what would you play after rook takes b7? Okay, I think I paused the video too, because obviously I wanted to see rook takes b7. I think the move is rook a8, because it's a problem, right? Here you're going to give a checkmate. So what does White play? Here there are two possibilities. One is bishop f1, and the other is probably queen d1. Let's see, queen d1, I think the problem is d3. Why this move is a problem? Because if you take, again, there is rook a1, game over, right? If also, because it's not only rook a1 game over, it's the fact that this bishop can go here. Once he goes here, the queen goes on f2, and this queen is not there anymore, and then you have a mate on g1, right? Just to show you, in case you don't believe me, play this, let's say. track, okay, track, and he gives check. I don't care. What does he do? He does this, perfect, but this is over. Okay, this is over. So it's kind of problematic, right? So let's see what else could have done. So it was here, I think, here, and sorry. Because after all, that's become a problem, right? Once you take on b7, and we have this here, so the rook a8 is here, perfect. So instead of queen d1, and this is why I told you to pause, because this is a simple situation, but you have multiple possibilities as white to try to defend. h3 could be one. Now, to avoid big confusion, let's try to see bishop f1, because you say, hey, at least I block that, right? Not really. Queen g4, king here, and then you still have this. What do you do? How do you stop it, right? I don't know. Because you see, you can think I do this, beautiful, but it's not working. Because also if I just go simply for take, you defend, then you have to stop that, right? How you don't know how you actually do it. How do you stop it? Because, for example, you could play this, right? And then this is just 3 squares from the thing. Boom. Okay? Duck. Check. Duck. Check. Duck. Let's say it goes here. Wonderful. Can I defend that? Yes, I can. I can play this. And he can play this. Yes, but then I play this. So what do you do? Because again, now it's a queen. So as you can see, the pawn on b7 was not possible to take it. But I think by this point, because we are at move 25, Anand maybe was running out of time. And so, as a good human player, he was panicking and understanding that he couldn't calculate as a computer, while the computer maybe in that time could already see 4 or 5 moves ahead. So it was kind of unbeatable. Maybe it was even more than 5 moves, maybe it was 8, because it was thinking in the opponent time, right? And so with that kind of calculation power, he clearly beat the human player. Now let's go back and see what happened in the game, and I will not stop, we just enjoy how the computer totally annihilate Anand. Okay, I think I got it right, and the position was rook a7, queen h4, and now we analyze why rook takes b7 cannot work, and he had to return back. The problem is that it seems he didn't know before playing rook a7, because this rook a1, in my opinion, is an admission of defeat. Is the fact that white understands at this point the game is over. But he still put up a pretty good resistance that if it was against another human player, maybe could work. Bishop e5, h3, queen g3, queen takes g3, f takes g3, rook f1. Now black doesn't want to exchange the rooks, because again, if you enter a kind of opposite color bishops with this kind of pawn structure, maybe it's not said that you win the game, so you must be careful and precise when you play chess, right? So he plays rook a8, rook f3, rook a1, bishop f1. So you see this exchange. What does it mean? That he wants to use the king as a blocker of the pass pawn, and he wants to activate this bishop. The problem is that this bishop is kind of bad. Why? Because all the pawns are on the white squares, so they block him, they make him a pawn. I think one of the Brazilian grandmasters call it a pawn with a high cap, something like that, but because it's just protecting pawns. So let's see what happens here. After bishop f1, black plays king g7, king g2, h5, h4, rook a2, and this is the problem with computers. They are really good at putting you in zugzwang, and this is what the computer is going to do. Meanwhile, Anand is trying to create a fortress where the opponent will not be able to enter. King h3, c6, and he starts to chip the pawn chain, right? D takes c6, b takes c6, king g2, c5, fixing the enemy pawns on white squares, which means this bishop is really bad. King h3, king h6 is not finished. You see, he's continuously attacking. Rook d3, g5, h takes g5, king takes g5, rook f3, bishop f4. As you can see, little by little, black gains control, and it's practically like a boa constrictor is squeezing the victim, right? Rook d3, rook a1, rook f3, and rook e1. Okay? So why the game is over? Well, what do you play now as white? This is the question, right? Let's say you play this move, he plays this. Now you cannot go here with a king. Like I told you, this is zugzwang, right? Next move is this. It's terrible. Where does it go? Where does it go? It's over. It's totally over. So it's terrible, but as you can see, computers are really precise in the endgame. They tell us to study the endgame, but we will never reach that because the computer is able to calculate all the moves. The fewer the pieces, the deeper is the computer going, so it's really difficult that a human will surprise a computer. I hope you enjoyed this beautiful game, of course at the expense of Anand, but we saw the best in the world, Mr. Anand, a world champion, someone who was trained from when he was little to play chess, totally destroyed in the year 2000 against Fritz Primergy. KA 800. Good night.